Depression. It's not something for the weak. If you think that's what it is, you're wrong. Depression can hit anyone at any time for any reason. When it does, it's a pressure that can really rob you of your purpose. We're going to talk about that with Ron Jones next on the Purpose Under Pressure podcast. Now the heat is on. Let's get cooking. This is Purpose Under Pressure. It's a podcast about people, just people like you and me, business folks, folks leading organizations, trying to do the next right thing. Their purpose, they swing their feet out of bed in the morning, they put them on the shoes and they get going, what they're trying to accomplish, and then those pressures that come every single day. Sometimes out of nowhere, and try to knock us off of our course. We talk about that here on the Purpose Under Pressure podcast. If you are back again and kind of hanging out with us story after story, thank you. If you don't mind, click that follow button, like us, subscribe us, any way that you can help us to get the word out that this show has some meaning and is worth following or paying attention to. That's how we're going to change lives, and I do appreciate your support in that way. Purpose Under Pressure is and has been and always will be, as far as I'm concerned, brought to you by my friends at Sandler by the Ruby Group. They are serving sales professionals nationwide from their Akron and Columbus, Ohio locations. They're also in Jacksonville, Florida. It's sales training, it's business growth, it's helping leaders and businesses do the right thing, the right way, for the right reasons. If that's you, if that's the thing that you as a leader need to accomplish for your team or even for yourself, I promise you a call to the folks at the Ruby Group, whether you buy anything from them or not, it's going to change the way you think about a lot of things. And so go ahead and give them a call or check them out online at therubygroup.sandler.com. I'm interested to talk to our guest today about life. Sometimes we talk about success. Sometimes we talk about failure, purpose, and pressure overcoming each other. And that's what the show's all about. But this episode might be just a little bit different because sometimes it all goes sideways. And we're going to talk about that with Ron Jones. Ron is the National Account Manager with Delavan Spray Technologies. I moved my notes before I was done using them. And so that's what happened there. But welcome, Ron Jones.
Thank you.
To the Purpose Under Pressure podcast.
It's good to be here.
I'm really glad to meet you because I don't think everybody knows about everything about Ruby Group and Sandler, but they've seen Mike Jones on this show, and man, you bear a striking resemblance to him.
Yeah, we've been accused of being twins most of our lives.
Well, Mike is the one of the owners, one of the partners at Sandler by the Ruby Group. He's, you ever go through the process, Ron, of who would be on my Mount Rushmore? Who are the most important people? He'd have a ticket to be considered for me. He's just been that important to me. He always seems to show up when I need someone to kick me in the butt. And he does it in a way that makes me want to get out and get it done and maybe even impress him a little bit. So have you ever gotten that from him, or do you guys just wrestle a lot?
Yeah, we're definitely a driven family. Dad was a high school football coach, so gritty, tenacious, get it done at all costs. Playing by the rules, obviously, but that's in the DNA.
That's right. And when Mike said, you need to talk to my brother, Ron, I said, yep, I want to do that. So I'm glad we're talking here now. Ron, let us know a little bit about you, a little bit about why you kind of walk this earth and what your purpose is and what you're trying to accomplish. And let's go from there.
Sure. So I'm probably going to be a little bit of a different take on how this flows, but definitely a man of God. Faith drives me. That's one of my biggest whys. We talked about that a little bit before the show started, but I'm a strong follower of Jesus. I don't want to disappoint my Lord. I don't want to fail him. But at the same point in time, it's a constant transition walking with Jesus. You're constantly growing, constantly being challenged, constantly being attacked. So just making sure that he's famous and he's well thought of is one of my goals. Growing up as a kid with my parents, my dad instilled God, country, family with us in that order. And that kind of stuck in my life. I'm a patriot. My kids are patriots. Family's very important. Protector, provider, want to be there. And that's kind of like what motivates me and gets me out of bed in the morning.
It's interesting. Almost every other time I've asked that question, tell me a little bit about yourself, the guest will start with their occupation. And instead, you talked about your love of Lord and your willingness and desire to make him famous. I'm interested in kind of what drives you that direction.
So I had an identity crisis probably at the age of 30. And the identity crisis was, am I a man? I'm physically a man. I'm not. This was before nobody knew what sex they were. This is 25 years ago, right? So I knew I was a man, but was I a real man? And I wrestled with that for about 5 years. And it was just it became my identity. A lot of people tie their identity to their profession. They'll tie it to a sports team. They'll tie it to a lot of things. Well, as we both know, those things are fleeting. Careers fade, sports teams fail, but Christ never fails. So I've tied my identity to Jesus. That's who I am first and foremost. I'm his follower. And our pastor mentioned this Sunday, your belief of God and how you live your life, when those two close and that gap closes, then you're a mature follower of Jesus. So we talked about transitions and always being in flux as a follower of Christ. I think I'm not my finished me. I'm going to leave this planet, Lord willing, in the future, a better version of who I am today. So that identity crisis kind of led me to understand who I really was. And before I'm anything, I'm his. And
Yeah,
that brings a lot of peace and stability to life and careers.
when you have that ability to understand what's important, and I think that's what purpose is. I think God brings purpose to us. What kept you from finding it in the first place? Why did it take so long to figure out, or what was that storm that was going on that caused you to lose your way?
Sure. I would call it pride. We're all this and we're all that until we're not. And when your cage gets rattled, then who are you and who do you lean on? What do you stand on? And if it's not a firm foundation, you're going to get your butt whipped for many years, many days, whatever the story is. So I know I've had a couple identity crises. That was in the past, 25 years ago. And then
Hmm.
recently the cage got rattled again. So obviously Jesus is King and Lord of my life, but as a family man, as a father, a husband, a provider, protector, when you're grinding to pay the bills, grinding to provide for your family, grinding to protect them, and then your kids move out of the house, they take half your heart with them. The bills are paid, the house is paid. So what's the purpose? You kind of lose that professional edge. And recently it was really hard. I kind of lost my why, lost my purpose. I told you before the show, I was kind of depressed. Talked to my wife about losing my purpose and what am I doing? I don't need to grind at work,
Hmm.
but I still need to please the Lord. So it was a funk. It was probably a 3 to 5 month funk of just woe is me. What am I doing? What's my aim? And then I had an opportunity for a career change. Delavan came knocking, and I kind of sought them out. And it was a 5 month process to bring me on board, which was very good because they wanted to get the right candidate.
Hmm.
I didn't want another career change. I want this to be the last stop on the train. And sure enough, it was a home run with them. Their people are amazing. Their culture is solid. They're driven by biblical values, morals, and ethics, and they actually live what they proclaim. So I've been learning them, learning a new product, learning new processes, meeting new people. So that's kind of gotten me out of this funk. There's now a new purpose from a professional standpoint, to learn and grow and not um, disappoint the Beckett family. We're run by John and Kevin Beckett. They own Delavan. Outstanding men of God with a clear vision, a clear purpose, and they walk it, and they're real and they're authentic. And it's an honor to be under their leadership and in their organization.
Tremendous. And so I think a lot of people, I'm 50, count carry the one, 57 years old, and there's a thing called the midlife crisis that I kind of see on my shoulder every once in a while, like, what's next, what's going on. And I'm not worried about it. I think it's good that I see it before it clobbers me. But you're right, there is a point. And so there's people out there listening to the show now that are sitting at their desk. They've been at their desk forever, right? Or it feels that way. Life's changing around them. They're not quite sure what to do. And I think it hurts. I think you miss some kind of a reason for being. What was it like for you? And if you don't mind sharing, how did it feel when you felt that identity crisis? What was that like? Let's see if people can relate.
It felt like a defeat, like I'm losing at life. So men are wired to win at work and to win at home. That's just the way God made us. He gives us passion and desire and drive to win professionally and to win at home. So succeed in your business endeavor, whatever that is, president or janitor. we're gifted and equipped to be different roles, and that's good. That's not our identity. That's our role. There's a Sandler term, RI or IR, identity role.
Mm-hmm.
So he's wired us to win in that capacity that he's gifted us in, and then at home to be a provider and a protector, a good father and a good husband. So I've learned in my walk with Jesus that if a man wins at work but loses at home, the loss at home negates the win at work, and vice versa. If we're losing at work but winning at home, that's two losses in our mind subconsciously. So I was losing at work in an undesirable situation, and that trickled into my loss at home, and it was just like I can't do anything right. And you know how Satan especially takes that little inch and turns it into a country mile.
Mm-hmm.
And so mentally, I was just kicking my own butt. I was getting my butt kicked at work, didn't want to be there. I was getting my butt kicked at home. Kids are gone. What's my purpose? It's kind of like just it was a spiral effect. And especially post COVID, I think we've gone isolation more
Yeah.
than normal. And when men get scared and they lose, we tend to hide, just like our great grandfather Adam. He hid from God. We tend to hide. We tend to check out and just hide. And that's kind of what I was doing.
Yeah, you were hiding away, and I'm wondering what you were trying to do. Did you realize? I mean, if you knew what it was, you could have just gone out and fixed it. A lot of times with depression and things of that sort, we don't even realize we're in it. We're just in something. Maybe we don't even know we're in something. We're just going. What
Yeah.
did you try to do before you switched careers and different things? But how did you try to fix the problem?
So I did a real good job of hiding,
Yeah.
just trying to be putting up a facade that wasn't me. And it's kind of a hard question to answer. Trying to stay faithful to Jesus, but yet be true to my employer and true to my family and give it my all. When you're waking up and you're somewhere you don't want to be, it's hard to give it your all. And just kind of going through the motions. Like I'm not checking out of life. I wasn't suicidal by any stretch of the means, but I was depressed. Wasn't winning at work, wasn't winning at home, and it was just like, why am I here?
And so
So
something probably happened that woke you up. Maybe some folks call it a rock bottom or whatever. Was there something that said, okay, wait a minute. I need to do something different here. I got to get control of this.
yeah, it's one of those things. Again, Dad was the high school football coach, so family's very gritty. We tend to work our way through our problems. So it just got to the point like I was gaining weight, and it kind of started with that. So let's just get your fat butt back into shape. Came back from vacation. My wife and I we try to take a trip a quarter since the kids moved out.
Yeah.
That kind of keeps us together.
We're doing the same. Yep.
So we came back from vacation. I had gained 30 of the 50 pounds that I had lost back. And I wasn't going back to my high weight. So started eating better, walking more, lifting weights 3 times a week, drinking a lot of water, getting better sleep, smaller portions. So I lost 20 of those 30 that I gained back. I
Mm-hmm.
am at my high school weight or below when I graduated high school. So that's a win.
Yeah.
So just looking for those little things to win at and then building from there to get back onto that firm foundation. So haven't abandoned the faith. My wife and I are reading through the Bible in a year together. So it's always been there, but sometimes you're just doing something to check a box versus being engaged. So getting engaged with God's word, staying faithful to him, faithful to the Lord. And then here we are 5 months later, new company, new culture, new products to learn, new challenges. So we need that as men. We need that mountain to conquer. We need
Yeah.
that dragon to slay.
Yeah.
So that dragon is now in the form of a new job where I've got to be sharp. I've got to learn. I don't want to disappoint the leadership and the ownership and my boss. So there's the challenge. There's the dragon. And now we're swinging full and back at it.
Yeah, good for you. Tell me a little bit about when you were going through some of those things about your wife and maybe even your kids. Was there a slap in the back of the head from any of them to help you get it straight, or was that going maybe in a different direction that you kind of didn't want it to go?
Yeah, I don't think there wasn't really one of those slap in the face moments this go around. The last go around when my identity crisis as a man, I was in a new job that I was over my head, and my
Mm,
wife kind of told me, if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. That was the gut punch that kind of got me turned around. Like, hey, you got to roll up your sleeves, bud, and get this done. Quit
hmm
complaining and just start making it happen. But this last go around was kind of different. It was foreign territory. Brian didn't really quite understand. There was no real gut punch. The kids, obviously, I don't want to disappoint my family. I want to be there for my wife to support her emotionally and physically and mentally and financially. But it was just one of those slow climbs out of the valley this last go around.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit. I've got the empty nest here. Now I've handled it a little different. I couldn't wait till those kids get out. I'm just
Yeah.
kidding. That empty nest, and my wife and I are living it to the fullest. In fact, I showed my daughter a picture of something we were having for dinner. She's at college, and she wrote back a text that says, "Hey, I can't wait to have that." And I had put in the text line, I said, "This is how we empty nest." And she said, "I can't wait to have that." And I wrote back, "What part of empty nest do you not understand? This is what we eat when you're not here, not what you eat when you're here." But I'm just kidding. But I'm just interested in, jobs can change. You're loving your job now, and I want to talk about that in a second. But jobs can change. That nest is still going to be empty. Is there another place that you're finding your purpose? Even though the job is satisfying you now, it won't always be there, and that nest isn't going to get any fuller.
Yeah. So shifting toward ministries and helping other people. I lead a men's group at
Good.
our church. So we get together and we talk about life. We're getting ready to start a study on the book of Daniel tonight, actually. And then I was recently
There's a
appointed
man.
to be, I
Yeah.
was recently appointed to be a deacon at our church.
Oh, good.
So we have main roles in serving the community. We believe in helping and supporting our widows. So I'll be assigned a widow at our church and being able to serve and help her in that capacity. And then serving locally at our church. I'm also the president of a board of young Christian professionals. We're a prison ministry. We help justice involved men and women, mostly men on my side, to we kind of intervention, teach them in high school and whatnot how to not go to prison. We intervene while they're in prison with programs and just loving them the way Jesus would, sharing God's word. And then we have post prison care to help them with housing and getting established back on their feet. So I'm involved with that. It's a fairly new ministry. It's not new, but it's new board ran. So the board's been intact for about a year. So we're working through the administrative struggles that come with being a board operated ministry. So as I transition professionally into retirement, we've got those ministry opportunities to help fill that professional void.
Yeah. So you've got plenty going on. It leads me to ask this question. This is called purpose under pressure. You lost your purpose. You had a ton of pressure. You've got your purpose. Which do you think has molded you more? The pressure builds the diamond, but you got to have the coal in the first place. Is it more about your purpose that has surfaced, or is it more about the fact that I got to beat this pressure?
Everyone in the organization needs to know how to sell. Sales is the strength of any company. Whether or not you're in marketing, operations, or even finance, everyone has a strong shared accountability towards driving top-line revenue. Whether or not you're client-facing or talking over the phone, you're able to build a stronger level of rapport with the clients. Everyone in the organization shares that responsibility to know how to sell.
Is it more about your purpose that has surfaced, or is it more about the fact that I got to beat this pressure?
So probably a little bit of both. So as you walk with Jesus, you're always going to have trials. There's always going to be tribulations. So understanding that sometimes we just go through some hard times and we're not quite sure why this is happening. We have history that says it's going to be okay. I don't know what the end is going to lead to. I mean, I could be killed today on a car crash. I could die today of a heart attack. Who knows the story? But I know the past, and I know that God provides time after time after time, whether he's parting a sea, whether he's raising the dead or curing the blind. He makes a way when there seems to be no way. So having that peace that even though I'm going through a storm in life, it's going to end. This too will pass. When and how it's going to pass, I'm not quite sure.
Mhm.
But just keeping my eyes on the prize and not wanting to disappoint my Lord, that was the bigger driver to get out of this funk. But at the same point in time, pressures will always shape and mold us into who we are. It's not at the mountaintop where we're shaped. Champion's not, he's not forged in the locker room. He's forged on the battlefield. So it's the valley where we grow. It's the valley where we come to who we really are. It's easy to say, look at me on top of a mountain.
Mm.
But can you say, hey, look at me in the valley? I'm the same person. One's in glory, one's in agony, but it's the same part of the man. And it's just, you find out who you really are when you're tested through trials and tribulations. That's who you really are. When things are stacked against you and the pressures are insurmountable, that's who you really are. You're not your real you on the mountaintop. You're not your real you when everything's going great. I can be
Mm.
so easy to get along with when things are going great. And I fail my wife, I fail my kids, I fail my employer and my Lord every day, but grace is sufficient. And there's nothing like being humble and repenting and turning back time and time again, right? There's nothing wrong with losing. You look at baseball, we're in the middle of the World Series. Baseball players fail more times than they succeed. You hit the ball 3 out of 10 times, you're a Hall of
You're a
Famer.
Hall of Famer.
So I think sometimes in life we don't give ourselves enough credit for being in the arena, for getting our nose bloodied, for getting knocked down. Nothing wrong with getting knocked down as long as you get back up. So we're going to get knocked down in business. We're going to get knocked down in life. We just have to be strong enough and have the mental fortitude to rise to the occasion.
So I think Delavan, who might have found you at a lower spot, is now just loving the idea of Ron Jones with this purpose behind you. You got to be loving your job too, and they've got to be loving having you. How much of this new purpose are you bringing to this new job?
So we are who we are, right? In our best moments and our worst moments. But yes, Delavan has 30 plus years of me being formed professionally through various companies and in hard situations to be in a national account manager role. I was a vice president in a former company and senior leader at the company before that. So I am at a lesser role, but I liken this to a head football coach
Mhm.
that takes on an offensive or defensive coordinator role. You know what they want at the top. So it's easy to kind of work toward meeting their needs. You want to come with solutions, not problems. You want to have a positive attitude. You want to be real about it, but at the same point in time, be transparent about it. So it's been a very good fit. I've gotten some good feedback from my boss and his boss, who I have a lot of respect for both of those gentlemen. They're outstanding individuals first, and they're great professionals second. So it's been a really good fit, not only from a cultural perspective, but from a man working with man perspective.
Hmm.
And then the experience that I bring, because they want me to grow this sector they hired me for. They hired me to grow the steel mill sector, which I spent 20 years, 13 years in steel mills with Timken, my previous employer, who was non-metallist. So I know my way around steel mills, but the challenge is taking that new product into a known space and using what I'm learning to help those customers perform and produce better steel. So it's been very positive, very encouraging. The future is
That's awesome.
definitely bright.
That is awesome. I normally at this point ask what are the hurdles that you can see coming up, but I'm going to ask it this way instead. What have you learned through your highs and through your lows, through your peaks and valleys that are going to allow you to overcome those imminent changes that are coming? What have you learned
Sure.
so far that you're going to be able to not allow the purpose to go away again?
So a no is a no for today. A no is not a no forever.
Mhm.
So just being gritty and following up without being pushy, and just understanding that people do business with who they trust. So I'm not going to come in and just start talking about features and benefits of our products. I'm going to get to know the person, build a relationship, understand their needs, and not every opportunity is a fit. So this is what I like about the Sandler process is I don't have to go in there and be pushy. I don't have to go in there and sound like I know everything about nozzles because I don't. I just have to go in there and be the real me and see what their need is. And if there's a need, let's talk. If there's
Mhm.
not, hey, we got to know each other. Maybe we're friends moving forward. Feel free to call me if you have any issues and we'll go on to the next mountain. So
I love it.
it's been very freeing just to know that I don't have to go in there and be the subject matter expert. I just have to go in there and see if they need help. And if they do, and we can help them, great. We've got a good fit. If not, have a good day, and hopefully our paths will cross in the future.
Yeah, it's interesting that the definition of a man is not winning. The definition of a man is trying for the right reasons and doing the right things and never quitting. And
Right.
sometimes you get caught up in, honey, I didn't accomplish anything today, when you get home, and that's not true. And so good for you. I want to share this story. This is episode number, I don't know, 60 or I don't know what, of this podcast. It's called Purpose Under Pressure. Before this, I did over 100 Dash of Grit episodes where we talked about the extra that you have to push through to get through. If you're stuck, you need a little push, need a little grit underneath the tires to help you out. And the reason I wanted to do it, and if people ask me, why do you do this podcast? I always say, it's because there's somebody on a street somewhere looking across the street to their neighbors in the perfect white house with the perfect wife and the 2.5 kids and dogs, and they've got the nice car and they never have any issues. And boy, don't they have it made. And I want people to know that that's not the truth. The person across the street struggled just as hard as you're struggling right now and might even be struggling worse. And you just can't tell because they don't let it show. And I have a feeling that I've just met the definition of the reason I started this podcast. Is that you, Ron? You're the person across the street that people didn't understand what he was going through.
Yeah, especially in this social media age of ours,
Oh,
we like to post our highlights. So we see other people's highlights and we compare our life, which includes our lowlights, to their highlights, and it's depressing.
yeah,
But people are people, whether you're in England or in America, we have problems, we have challenges, we have heartache and headache, we have triumphs and successes. But at the end of the day, we just want to live peacefully with our neighbors. We want to provide for our families and we want to be joyful. So we're no different across the world, whether we're Arabs, Christians, Muslims, we all want the same thing. We want what's
yeah,
best for our family.
yeah. We're all
So
trying to work in
absolutely.
our best or trying to do the best we can, and we all fail. As long as we're trying, we're going to fail, and we're all getting back up and brushing ourselves off and getting back out there and do it again. And so never feel like you don't have it as good as somebody else, or you're not as lucky as someone else, or you're never going to be as successful as someone else, because those folks across the street are having those same doubts and same fears and just trying to do it on their own as well. And we're all struggling. And so, Ron, I thank you for sharing and being very vulnerable and talking about yourself in a very, very real way. I know there's people out there that won't tell their neighbor or the person in the next cube over that they're struggling. And I also heard you say how much you were involved in helping others, especially through Jesus. If someone wanted to reach out to you and talk about their issues, I bet you wouldn't mind. And I'm interested in if someone wanted to talk to you, whether it be about the things that you offer through your career, steel sales, whatever it might be, or even anything personal. Could they do that?
Absolutely. I would welcome that.
And how would they reach out? How would they find you?
So one of two ways. They could email me at rojoforhim@gmail.com. That's ROJO, the number 4, HIM @gmail.com. Or they could text or call me on the cell phone. I would recommend texting because I don't
Yeah,
typically
sure.
answer the phone if it's an unknown number. But
None
if
of
you
us do.
text me and bring up this podcast, I'll definitely call you back. Cell phone number is 330-754-5964.
Folks, that's Ron Jones. He's a national account manager with Delavan Spray Technologies. And I think even more than that, he is a real man, and he is fighting for his family. He is fighting for his kids, and he's doing great work for his business. And that's just the real story right there. And Ron, thank you very much for being our guest on Purpose Under
My
Pressure.
pleasure, Brian. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Yeah, I tell you what, folks, it really is. It really is why we do this. It really is. If you're listening right now and you think you've got it bad, I want you to know that other people do too, and I want you to know that it's worth the effort and it's worth the struggle, and it's also worth asking for help. Not just always in personal issues or mental, but if you're trying to hit your sales goal, trust me, you're not the only one. And if you're trying to hire the right employee and you can't keep the lines open, trust me, you're not the only one. Find someone that maybe shares experiences and figure it out together. And I think pressure is a lot more light when we do it together or do it in a very open way. And that's how we accomplish things and how we don't lose our purpose. So thank you again to Ron Jones for being a guest on Purpose Under Pressure. And this show is and always is brought to you by Sandler, by the Ruby Group. Sellers are under pressure to perform. Ron talked about that a little bit. Sandler helps you to succeed on purpose. You're going to find every one of these past episodes, and they're all full of stories, maybe not this personal, but ever so much impactful. You're going to find those at brianmediastrategies.com/podcast and wherever you stream your favorite shows. We do this every week, and we will see you next time on Purpose.